They're super concise, short. I have actually a hard copy. Normally, I'm doing it on like Audible, so this one, I love this one. By the way, are we supposed to be done, or do we have more left?
One more week.
Okay, good. All right, 'cause I'm actually kind of sort of keeping up. Just from last week and kind of heading into this week. Uh, I love the perspective. I always say stoicism and stilling the mind. Like that's not how I work. That is I don't naturally go to that state. So I love the way he incorporates historical figures. Some you've heard of, some you haven't. I know. I guess last section was talking about Kennedy and just again all these little just like the obstacles the way. Uh, he digs into stories you kind of know or maybe you're familiar with, but just really applies it. So whether it's philosophical, you know, teachings from different religions, or just very practical, flawed humans who had mastered some of these characteristics. So I just, in general, really appreciate the style and the content. So one of my takeaways is that I just kind of again said differently than we've heard it, but it's just very visceral. The world is like muddy water. To see through it, we have to let things settle. We can't be disturbed by initial appearances, and if we are patient and still, the truth will be revealed to us. And you just, I don't know, it's just very, it's settling. It initially looks like a mess. So again, just a real creative way of saying it. The That silence is so rare is a sign of its value. Seize it. We can't be afraid of silence as it has much to teach us. Seek it. Again, that's something that does not compute in my world normally unless I force it. So I was talking to someone the other day, like driving in the car or whatever. It's like I don't not like that. Not like down in Miami where you're like just on edge, well, like on 95 or whatever. But like if you drive in distance and you can, it's a podcast or whatever, nothing else is coming at you. You're kind of locked in. I appreciate that silence. And then something that I said very clearly, I try to impart to me. I've got to figure out a better way to say this to my kids because these days reading is like kind of a lost art. This whole thing, because there's so much stimulus, or I can just get it from device or whatever. But people who don't read have no advantage over those who cannot read. Drop the mic, pretty. So concise, effective takeaways. So really enjoying the book.
And here's why I love the book, because I'd forgotten about that muddy water example. But yes, just as you're redescribing that one there, it was like what a perfect analogy for just this entire book. So that's awesome. Welcome back. Happy New Year, Darren.
Thanks,
I'll
buddy.
jump in.
Now I'm gonna drop to my other one, but I'll go back and follow how you guys did. This is a great one. I will be back.
Awesome, awesome. So, all right, well, I'll roll in with just over this last section of the different ones that I have really enjoyed, or just some of the takeaways. My absolute favorite chapter of this one was the bathe in beauty. And for me, what that one was, the beauty of nature, of just being outside and letting, just nature calm you. And I immediately thought of, I think, just so much of, and makes sense why I enjoy our camper so much in the summers up here and getting out, because that's where we're going. We're going out to nature. And that's kind of been a through line of, again, why it's still here in Alaska dealing with 18 below today is and it's warmed up, right? It was 40, 50 below the other day. So, we're on a heat wave. It's it's just being outside, and I look at all the just different fun adventures and just the calming peacefulness of just being outside. And I look at all the times we go down to Denali, or whether it's out to our cabin or whatever, and you're just immersed in it. And there is just that soothing nature. So for me, as I thought like when we go moose hunting, and that's some of my favorite, whether or not we're successful when we get a moose, it's those, few days in a row where getting up early, staying up late, sitting in this moose stand where it is just calm still. There's nothing else going on there. You're just listening. You're just alone with your thoughts up there. And I think for me, that's some of the most peaceful times. And it's great when we get one and have a successful year and fill the freezers. I love it. But even when that doesn't happen, it's still an absolute highlight of every fall for me. So that was one of the sections where I could immediately relate to, like, I get it. Like, I've never through that understood, but this kind of helps add some context to that one there. I thought it was interesting, fascinating when I talked about the chapter there, the healing of the inner child, and how impressionable we truly are when we are young. And some of the examples he gave there with like Leonardo da Vinci, and just how being the bastard son of his, the illegitimate son of his dad, who had all these other ones, and just, some of the struggles he dealt with growing up, and how that manifested himself, always looking for that love and approval of others, just because he never fully got that from his dad from a young age, and just how that truly impacted. And so just being mindful of that, with any, like, just what is the foundation something is being built upon, and how that can truly impact. Yeah, there's ways to fix and correct later, but just it's so much easier to start correctly from the beginning, and just being mindful of that there. But really enjoyed that one. I liked the very last chapter in this one here of the entering relationships, and just how important life is with others, and how much more meaningful. And when he's talking about, Johnny Cash buys this beautiful house out in the up against a lake in the mountains, and he goes in it, and it's him by himself in there, and all he realizes and screams out his daughter's name because he's there by himself. He doesn't have anybody else around him. And just, I liked his lines: without relationships, we are nothing, and by ourselves, we're a fraction of what we could be. And so the importance of, whether it's like your significant other, or just even relationships like this with what is book club and meeting every week, and relationships with your team and friends and family and all these other areas, is how important relationships truly are to creating that stillness and creating that calmness within you. Because without them, it's like, as even though he's talking about how important emptiness is, and sitting in silence and all this other, that's not good for the long term, finding those relationships. So I got a bunch of other notes here, but though I really enjoyed that one, I did not realize how, like, kind of like Darren alluded to, you've heard some of these stories, but didn't get full context on certain things. I never, like with JFK, I didn't realize he was that perverse. Like, okay, we all heard Marilyn Monroe. We know what happened there. But wait, all these other stories, Bay of Pigs, he's got whisking off to some hotel with his 19-year-old. Like, holy smokes, what is going on there? And just the last but not least there for me, when it was talking about the domain of soul, Tiger Woods, just the extreme pressures on it, right? They always, pressure is what you need pressure to create diamonds. Like, okay, what did this create? It created this absolute beast of a golfer, but internally, what did it? What did he have? He had just kind of like they said with JFK, where he was just going out. There was often joyless sex. He just needed the sex. Like, he's just craving it, and just what turmoil that ultimately wrought upon his whole life as it all came crashing down when it all came out. And just how finding the right pressure and the right support group, kind of tying into the relationships, the right people around you, what direction that can take. So no, again, it's been a very good book. I've very much enjoyed this reading, and yeah, Ryan Holiday, all of his stuff has been very, very good.
I'll jump in. Um, your rendition about getting a good hunt and moose reminds me of being a Boy Scout for 30 days on the way from San Francisco all the way to Anchorage, actually to the Circle and back. So, yeah, we have enjoyed incredible moose burgers for days upon end. So it's the best out somewhere where there's nothing but big mosquitoes.
Yes, they'll carry you away.
That's right. Anyway, for me, virtue. I don't look at it in terms of virtue, but it's really it's a state. Our magnanimous personalities, it seems, we all have here. But I look at it in terms of the genius of generosity. When you can master the genius of generosity, whether you're putting a stamp on it and sending it somewhere, or you are putting a stamp for something from your heart onto somebody else. I think that is, when you can naturally move in that direction and give up of yourself for that moment or whatever it might be, to assist or lend an ear, or to be in that state, healing the inner child. If we cut our wrists, Pennzoil's not coming out, blood's coming out. And so we have to look at things really in that frame that it is a life's work. It is a life's work. Um, Beware Desire, that was powerful. The Tiger Woods story and the JFK story. I knew somewhat about Tiger, and his upbringing and his dad and a lot of the escapades that went on there. But I didn't, it made sense of what I knew, and then reading, and trying to integrate all of that. But one of my takeaways with that was that's great. He can hit the ball. He can bounce the golf ball off his 6-iron and hit it 230 yards. Great. It's great that you have won all of these PGA championships. Great. You live in Florida and you've got access to the president to play golf on weekends. You can go anywhere in the world and pick up 18. But there's just something that just drove me to the point of, I don't know, it is just sort of I was moralizing it a bit. And, that's great. You've created a legendary golf champion. Fabulous. And it's more about the heart and the soul piece of it that the parents, I think, missed. The JFK story, was nothing really new, but again, it's that inner child that's so broken, and you carry that into your adulthood, and then conquering anger. That is something that has a piece of which that can be so fractionated and consume so much energy in our lives, and it actually has, from its varying degrees, and produce physical manifestations in our body, in addition to our spirit and all of that, and our emotional life. But that is a cycle that is, to me, like just feeding yourself sugar. If you're, really addicted to sugar and inflammation, anger is inflammation to the soul. So, anyway, enjoying the book. Great. It's just, it's just tilling the ground. I feel like it's late spring and we're tilling and we're getting ready to prepare some kind of soil here. So, great choice. Great choice.
I'll go next. I'm definitely enjoying this book, and I think, as I mentioned last week, the timing of starting the year this way, I feel like is just like to Ron's point, like tilling the soil and everything. And I really, really liked the kind of going back that one chapter where it's talking about Lincoln and his information diet. Um, I feel like that really resonated with me because I know that I'm definitely really mindful about what I'm listening to, especially news. I was talking to a friend about this other day of just, but not even just information, but kind of like all the different things as the different chapters, like the relationship aspect, that's also part of the information diet, um, and just the importance of being able to, because those connections, those relationships can be powerful in either direction, And so I love that he included that in his in the book, and just the importance of that, and not like just let's just find a little hideaway and be zen for a while. It's like keeping it real, like you need those relationships, you need to have that connection. And like you, Chris, that beauty in nature chapter was just like I was just I just kind of sat with that for a long time. And I want to share with you, I just recently moved to Laguna Beach, and I feel like I just want to turn my screen and show you the view that I have right now that I'm looking at. Can you see the ocean?
Calming.
Are you able to see
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like God just blessed me with this, so that whole nature, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I live with every day, because I'm kind of up high, so it's like I'm tree level, so I feel like this tree house, but then I'm looking out at the ocean. So as I was reading that chapter, I felt like I was embodying that, where I was like, wow, this is definitely resonating with me. And I felt like it was giving me lots of um, tools and practices to really even appreciate it even more. So I like that he keeps it. Although the stories, yeah, of Tiger Woods and JFK were just like, oh, that I appreciate that he also just keeps it real. Things, you know what I mean? That like these people experience these heights and all the different things, but they're super flawed. But for me, I was just thinking like, you know, they're both people who achieved amazing things externally, but what examples of what can happen internally if, they're not really what you're saying, Ron, tilling that soil internally and finding those balance and things. So it's interesting. Like I said last week, this book always lingers with me in some way or another, and so the nature chapter for sure, because like I said, I'm just kind of like, oh, this is my life right now. But also, I feel like this is a daily reminder for me of just what am I doing? How am I incorporating this in my life? And um, I feel like each chapter is just kind of touching. I usually have like one nugget where I'm like, oh yeah, huh, that's really good, And I think like the mind, that chapter about the mind, and what we're putting into our mind, I feel like it's, it's, it's such a game changer, in terms of like the stillness of the mind. I mean, I can't say that that's like my practice, but I also find that there are times when I touch in those moments where it's like, oh, that's what they're talking about. That is great, and just how do I do that more? How do I find that more? And I think I just get little snippets of pause, where um, one of the practices like this book reminded me of is that being present. I really loved a lot when he's talking about that presence. And when I lived in San Francisco for 15 years before moving back here to Southern California, and I take the train every day to BART, just going different places. And that would be my moment of practicing presence because I realized I would look around and every single person was like this. Every person. Um, it was so rare to just see someone just standing there with nothing in their ears and nothing in their hand and just being present. And it was so interesting the things I observed, and the things that people missed because they were looking down. I mean, there are some characters would get on the train. I was like, what? They're standing right next to them doing all these different things, and the person who just missed the whole thing. So I felt like that was just a real time practice daily of like how much are we missing when we're not fully present, And so that's what this book reminds me of is just how distracted I can be. And um, how can I just have moments? Because sometimes it's not realistic to like, wait 3 weeks to check my mail or all the different things, some of the things he's talking about. But like, what can I do to incorporate some of that nature aspect or just the different things that he brings in? So, like everyone, I'm loving it and enjoying it. So, yeah.
I'll jump in really quick, so that everyone else can go in and I'll read Arlene's takeaways at the end. I highlighted and took a lot of notes, but I'm just gonna kind of generalize it because I feel like I'll be here forever. With the heal the inner child, I had the very first quote at the top. It says, "The child is in me still, and sometimes not so still." So to me already the whole play on words in that is like she's here and sometimes she's a mess, right? And then a couple pages later it says the functional adult steps in to reassert and reassure to make that stillness possible. And then there was like a whole I'm gonna say this wrong. Fish Nat something. He wrote like a whole little paragraph there, and I labeled that how to fix it, like how to heal the inner child. And then at the end, there's the formula: give more, give what you didn't get, love more, and drop the old story. So that's how he's basically saying this is how you would fix that inner child. The only other thing I wrote about in this chapter is I always say to my friends, whether it's my sister, my boyfriend, my cousin, if I ever hear them saying something bad about themselves, like, oh, I look so big or I feel so ugly or whatever, I always say, don't talk to my friend like that. Or like, don't talk to my cousin like that. Like I address it like in a different tense so that they can hear, even to myself, when I say those things to myself, I'll literally say out loud, don't talk to little Lola like that, because it brings it to like in front of me that there's a little person in there that you have to take care of, and it shows it to them too. The other things, I mean, let me turn quickly. Um, this chapter, the enough chapter, right? Enough is a beautiful thing. I put the question here, would you be satisfied if you got everything you ever wanted, right? And in the example, the guy gave, he asked himself that, oh, if every opinion and suggestion I ever did, if it came true, whatever, would I be satisfied? He said no, and he said that it literally crumbled his entire like. So what am I doing here? Like nothing I do is enough. Nothing I accomplish is ever going to be enough. And even then, it says, when we get to the finish line, to only think, this is it, now what? At the bottom, it says the mentality, which again, I think this is one of these other books. I think it was on a book called the View from the Top or something like that. It might have been, maybe you remember, Chris, but it says here, the mentality that gets an athlete to the top so often prevents them from viewing the thing they work so hard for. The need to progress can be the enemy of enjoying the process, meaning, yeah, you got to your goal and you can't even love it as much as you do, because you're already thinking about the next thing. You're like, anyway, how can I break my own record? Um, Again, in that same chapter, um, I was running out of highlighter. My highlighter was dying on me, but it says, the anything that you can accomplish, right? The medals, the six-figure bank accounts, they are not made of anything strong or malleable enough to plug even the tiniest hole in a person's soul. So that's like a really good thing, because that's what you were saying, kind of, Michelle and Ron, about Tiger Woods. Like, it does, like, yeah, he has all this success, but there's something like morally not cool there, right? It says, nor do they extend the length of one's life even by 1 minute. On the contrary, it may even shorten it. They can also take the joy out of the thing we used to love to do. More does nothing for the one who feels less than. To me, as soon as I read that, I was like, oof, they're getting a little deep here today. And then, let me see, less than who cannot see the wealth that was given to them already at birth. So that to me was like, I love that, because it's enough just to exist. You will never feel okay by the way of external accomplishments. Enough comes from the inside. So I love that chapter. The chapter in the Anne Frank story about the looking at nature. She wrote, beauty remains within, even in misfortune. If you just look for it, you discover more and more happiness and regain your balance. And then I wrote just a note to myself: allow yourself to feel small, to be small when dealing with problems. Because I think what I got from that chapter is like, yeah, she's looking at and connecting with nature, but she made nature and everything she was looking at like grand, right? She made it grand, and whatever situation, obviously the situation she was in and her family was a huge situation, but she made herself small in that situation to be able to see the grandeur of nature and connect with it. And then it says poetry of the earth. I love that. I just highlighted that because I loved it. And I think that's it. Let me just turn one more page. And then the last thing I highlighted, there's no stillness to the mind that thinks of nothing but itself, nor will there ever be peace for the body and spirit that follow their every urge and value nothing but themselves. This second part has been my favorite. Like, I love this whole second part better than the first. And then if you guys want to finish off, I'll read Arlene stuff last.
I'll jump in. I really liked the part about the or the archer master, and how he wasn't there to teach his pupils how to hit the target, but rather to break it down and clear their mind, master their mindset, to, master their form, and all of these other systematical things that do lead up to hitting the target. And I thought that was very much like building a business, right? Like focusing on your processes, your systems, who you have in place, and focusing on these things instead of just the like, ultimately, this is what I want to build and I'm just going to build this. And right, you miss a lot of things along the way if you don't break it down systematically or fundamentally. And so I really, I think, mainly because my outside world right now, my business is kind of going through these pieces, right? I have a vision of what I want for my business and the agency that we're creating. And we are in that process of focusing on some of the fundamental pieces of workflows, whose roles are what, really finessing our systems instead of just constantly looking at, oh, well, here's the monetary goal, here's the ultimate goal that we want to hit by the end of the year, we're focusing on some of these little things. And so I think that's probably why this chapter really just kind of kept sitting in my mind. But there were a couple of things that he said at the very beginning of that chapter, that stillness is actually a way to superior performance. Looseness will give you more control than gripping tightly. And ultimately, I was like, okay, yeah, I get that. Like, I've been the person who has evolved from really having to control everything to going through the phases of delegation and letting the results happen, and not having to be overly controlling. But at the same time, I don't know that I truly had looseness to that. It was more just, I know I have to delegate to get this done because I can't do it all myself. And so it just kind of opened my mind to, would I have more peace if I practice a little bit more of that stillness or that looseness, or is that stillness only going to come if I practice that looseness? And letting go is ultimately like the title of the chapter. And then it also said that, part of that comes from mastering our mental domain. And I think that is, for the past 2 years for myself, has been a lot of that mental work of removing emotions, taking challenges and obstacles and not looking at them personally, right? Like looking at them as, okay, how could I work through this and still ultimately achieve the goal? Not that there's a challenge and I can't achieve my goal now, right? And so it said, like, mastering our mental domain requires us to step back from the rigidity of the word mastery, which I know for a long time, it was always like mastering my craft, being excellent at everything I do. It says we'll get the stillness we need if we focus on the individual steps, if we embrace the process and give up chasing. We'll think better if we aren't thinking so hard. And I think I'm still kind of mulling around in my head, okay, how can I not think so hard? Because I'm always thinking. I feel like I'm always on. My brain always goes. But at the same time, I feel like I am slowly experiencing some of what he calls stillness, that I don't know that that's how I originally would have called that. As I do let go, as I do say, hey, I'm going to let you handle this, and the calm and peace that I do ultimately feel at the end of the day when a project is done. But also, I'm trying to figure out, as I am constantly a master of my, like, I try to be excellent in everything I do. I mean, I guess the best way to put it is like, this past weekend I had an event. I was out of town, and it was like the first time I've brought like a team member with me to execute. I usually do everything myself, right? So I'm always thinking, I'm always on, I'm always go, 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 that there really is no time for stillness. And because I know how I deliver and I trust my own processes in that, I may have, mastered my own processes to get there. But I rarely allow somebody else to truly come in and do without my constant guidance. And we put on an event, and I just don't know that like I've ever been so calm, so still, and so like honestly peaceful at the end of the day. There was one element of like, but did I execute excellently? I don't know, because I didn't have to do a lot of stuff. So it was really hard for me to balance that piece. But at the end of the day, I do think we as a team executed excellently. I think I just have to start working on, yeah, Crystal, you didn't do everything A to Z like you normally do, and you're not completely exhausted. You're not, you know, freaking out about one little thing here or there, because you know that you had a team to support you to do this. And so anyways, I appreciate his words as I'm like kind of thinking that through, and how do I apply that to what I'm working through right now as a team and personally. But I really appreciate that, as like, if you start thinking too hard, right, you're gonna lose the ultimate goal, the aim. That's not the whole point. The stillness comes with being that loose and trusting the different processes and the steps and the different things that come with that. And so I appreciate that. Just how do I apply stillness in my business, not just in my personal life, not just in my own quiet times, but truly in my business, because that is ultimately where I spend a lot of my time. So how do I bring that into that part of my life?
Sounds like you already did, right? Because you're not, at least you are delegating it a little bit, and you're not going back and checking everybody's work, right? So there's also that's a win right there.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's also that question of like, well, if it's really that easy, why am I so conflicted?
I'll
Right.
tell
Like
you why,
I
'cause
did it, but at the same time, I feel conflicted. Like I feel like I shouldn't be feeling this way. It's
and
so
I
I
do
think
that to
that's what
Justin
I'm
all
working
the
through.
time. I'll
What's
literally tell
that?
Justin, I do that to Justin all the time. Like, Justin, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. And then I'll turn around and do it. And he's like, I'm doing it. Just sit down and do it. I'm like, I'm sorry, I have a
I'm like, hold
problem.
on. I'm like in the process of doing this at the moment. She's like, it's okay. I'm going to finish it. I'm like, oh, okay. So there we go.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But it's,
Crystal, what a great thing that she actually had that experience of like having the team member do so much more and then having that result afterwards, like, oh, I felt so calm. You know what I mean? So, like, that could be something you carry with you as you go forward. Like, like that baby step. It's like you already know the positive result. So it's just like, okay, when that grip is feeling tight again, it's like, oh, yeah, no, I know that I can release a little bit because I already had that experience. So,
Yeah,
I think that's
exactly.
great, especially when you're used to like being that woman of excellence and everything's up here. And it's just like, and then delegating, letting somebody else and trusting. It's like, ah,
so
so
Yeah.
next
good
next
job.
event,
I mean,
You'll see Crystal in the back just sipping tea while she's watching the team walk around. I'm just kidding.
I don't know that I could ever do that. I mean,
I'm totally kidding. I'm totally
but
kidding.
it does. It feels so great when you know that you can still achieve excellence with a group of individuals, not
Absolutely.
just solo, right? Like they say, like you're not winning if you're doing it alone. The reality is, building that team and bringing others with you to those higher levels just is so rewarding and so fulfilling. And yes, I feel like I did that. Do I think it's the end? Do I think, like you said, Michelle, like, no, like what can we do to keep that going? And already really trying to finesse the systems on how we made that happen. What can we change? What worked, what still didn't work, because again, even though we executed with a great end result, there were still things along the way that maybe didn't work or we need to adapt or be more efficient with. But I think ultimately that stillness that I did feel now that I'm kind of putting the feeling with the word now is that was very, I think, humbling as well, of just like, this feels good. This is ultimately, I think, the feeling that not only do I want for myself, but my team as we achieve this and take care of our clients and execute not only, with excellence and precision, but just that stillness of feeling like, yeah, we can bring this calm to you as well as, the client as we put on this event for you. So yeah, I think full circle, it was great. Still working on a few things internally as I kind of figure out, how to incorporate stillness into what I do.
One thing I wanted to also say is just, you're also by you achieving stillness, right? You're also helping your team achieve their goals also because now you're allowing them to step up and do the things that, they're trying to work on and things like that. So
Mhm.
it's like a win-win kind of thing.
Right.
So that's pretty awesome. Well, I'll jump in real quick. I know we only have a couple more minutes, and I don't want to take up anybody's time. Sorry I was late coming in. So I learned a couple things, and I'm learning a couple things about this book. Is that I feel like it was written for me, and really like trying to learn stillness. And I realized that I think that I am part of the problem, right? So like I will. We're getting ready to travel in a couple days, and when I travel, I find myself putting on headphones but not listening to anything, and just kind of pretending I have music playing, so I don't have to talk to anybody around me because I'm like, oh, I just don't want to talk to anybody right now, or like I'm in the grocery store or whatever, which is very rare. But I'm in the grocery store and I do the same exact thing, and then I forget that it's not plugged into anything, and the wire was hanging down one time. I was like so embarrassing. But That's when I had wired headphones, of course. But yeah, so I'm trying to be more present, I guess. After reading this, I'm like, okay, well, that's what he's talking about. You got to be present and to achieve the stillness. So I found that to be my guiding path as I'm going through this. So just the way that I'm kind of relating to it is just these things that stick out to me throughout the chapters are kind of what I'm going in, and they resonate with me. And I know, and Lola, you touched upon some of them when you were going through them, but for like choosing virtue, I really thought one of the things that stood out to me the most was where he says, yeah, recognition is dependent on other people. Getting rich requires business opportunities. You can be blocked from your goals by the weather just as easily as you can be a dictator. But virtue, no one can stop you from knowing what's right. Nothing stands between you and it but yourself. So again, it's determining what is important to you and what you are willing to stand for. And everybody has their own set of guidelines that they choose to live by. So I think that's important. I think everybody has those, and I try to stick to them. Not every time does it happen, but I try. So because like you, Crystal, I'm always my mind is always go go go. So it's hard to kind of slow down a little bit and kind of go through all that. And then I loved when he was talking about beware of desire. He says that it's an endless loop of misery. We're envious of one person while that they envy somebody else. And he goes on to say, it's sobering but to consider that the rival we're so jealous of may in fact just be jealous of us. There is also you have to have your cake and eat it too. Immaturity to envy. We don't simply want what other people have. We want to keep everything we have and to add theirs to it, even if those things are mutually exclusive. But if you had to trade places entirely with the person you envy, if you had to give up your brain, your principles, your proudest accomplishments to live in their life, would you do it? Are you willing to pay the price they paid to get what you covet? And then no, you aren't. And then he says, what will happen to me if I get what I want? How will I feel afterwards? So it's all as, to have your cake and eat it too. And it's one of those things I find myself, looking sometimes in the past and looking at other people and saying, oh, that's what I want, that I want that, I want that, I want that, and not realizing what you're giving up to get that. Or do I really want that? And if I got it, how would I feel? It's like, be careful what you wish for kind of thing. And so I think that that's, starting to live by your standards and the things that are important to you instead of somebody else's. And then the last part that I really, really liked was talking about enough. And like I said, I know Lola, you touched upon this, but I really thought that was kind of just stuck with me. The greatest misfortune is not to know contentment. The word calamity is the desire to acquire. And so those who know the contentment of contentment are always content. So that stuck out to me as well. Because are we going to be happy with enough? When is enough enough? And there's been more proof out there than not that it's never enough, right? So funny thing, well, funny story-ish. But Jay was talking to us about running for president, right? And going through this whole thing about, and so he had a conversation joking with us in our meeting about Lola and I moving into the White House with him. So I was like, awesome, done, game on, like let's do this, right? So I was like, but you have to work out one thing. I want like the Marilyn Monroe tunnels. So if I can get the Marilyn Monroe tunnels, because I'm going to use that to my advantage in like every pickup line conversation I could possibly have. Like, like come see me at the White House. I have the Marilyn Monroe tunnels, like, something like that. And so when I was reading that about, then I didn't know that about JFK. You only see, I mean, he was a little bit before my time, but but you hear all these great stories about him and how everybody loved him. But then you hear or you read this, and not that it's necessarily a bad thing, but it's something you just didn't know. And so I was like, huh, maybe I don't want those tunnels. Maybe the tunnels could stay where they are. We could board those things up because I don't necessarily want that reputation to come follow me anywhere. But so I just thought that was kind of funny about that. So maybe one day we'll be in the White House. We'll see how that goes. But this is gonna be. I feel like this is gonna be my journal. This is gonna be my guideline to my journal going forward. So I really like this one. So whoever recommended this is a good one.
Yeah, this is a good one. I love your takeaways, Justin, by the way. And then I guess to finish off, I'll read Harlene's really quick. She says, sorry, I didn't proofread this, so if I mess up, my bad. She says, but a big takeaway for me is the chapter on accept a higher power. This chapter really landed as I recently went to a women's circle, and long story short, we were making vision boards, sharing stories about life, etc. And it seemed that many of the women between 30 and 60 were dealing with people who are extreme energy vampires, aka narcissistic personalities. During the evening, the host of the event brought up the 3 C's of AA. The 3 C's are you didn't cause their behavior, you can't control their behavior, you can't cure it. Me, with my people-pleasing personality, has been hardwired from narc abuse. So it's so fascinating to be aware that narcs will never pause, do self-reflection, or take any accountability for their toxic behavior. In the chapter, page 109, on accepting a higher power, has been an interesting surprise, as it's where I'm literally right now. After going to the women's circle last Sunday, where so many conversations centered on dealing with extremely difficult people, the idea of stillness or the absence of it is so obviously clear now. What landed for me about this chapter is how it talks about different belief systems around the world, back to the different words and how they basically are the same thing: humility, surrender, and recognizing that we are not meant to be in control of everything. It deeply aligns with my beliefs, as to me, it's not really about religion, it's more about perspective. When I went through my divorce, my counselor said that even with all the chaos, I still had something about me that just says trust, that I trust that everything will be okay. Okay. And I think that's from reading so many self-help books. But I believe that energy never dies. So if it's true, knowing we are eternal beings in some form, that we can trust in something bigger than this life, in this what I call peanut shell body. And ultimately, my own need to fix or manage people and situations isn't as important as I thought it was, having to try to always help or fix people, and have boundaries for those people who clearly do not want the help and live in extreme states of ego. I'm learning and processing that stillness can't be forced into relationships. When I've shared with those I want to help for various things or concepts, I've learned of self discovery. Some people don't or will never pause, self reflect, or look beyond their ego. It's exhausting, and those people are legit energy vampires. That kind of energy pulls me out of alignment. Letting go of those relationships doesn't feel harsh anymore. It's absolutely necessary for my own sanity and life path. Choosing stillness right now feels like choosing peace, boundaries, and inner order over noise and chaos. That's all for now. See you guys next week. Well, that's from Arlene. And I think that's it. I think next week we are meeting for the last time about this book. And then we're going to move on to,
Who will cry?
yes, that one. Who will cry when you die? Yeah. Or when I die, or something like that. That's it. Unless anyone has something else to say.
Just thanks again and have an excellent rest of the week.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I'll see you, Michelle. We're going to miss you. See you,
I
Rhonda.
know. Have
Next
fun at
time.
Destin, everyone.
For
Safe
sure. See
travels.
you next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.